If the oil in the grinder seal has been contaminated with foreign substance, lay the grinder on its side and drain by removing the stainless steel plug on the side of the oil chamber. After removing the oil while the grinder is laid on its side, use a hex head driver to remove the screw that retains the cutter. Tap the cutter with a rubber mallet to loosen the threads, then thread it off the shaft. Then set the grinder back upright and remove the 4 bolts that hold the volute to the base of the grinder. Lift the grinder off the volute and move it to the side. Place the grinder back onto its side, hold the shaft with a large flat screwdriver, and begin removing the impeller by tapping it with a rubber mallet. Once the impeller is removed, there is a retaining spring that will be loose behind the impeller. Remove the spring. If the oil in the seal cavity is still pure and you want to save it, tilt the top of the grinder down to an angle where the oil will be retained when the seal is removed. With the rotating portion of the seal exposed, remove it by getting 2 flat screwdrivers on either side and prying gently and evenly, pulling the seal away from the seal cavity. Before going any further, make sure that you have the correct replacement seal. It's possible that the stationary portion will crack while being pried from its pressed position. To remove the stationary portion, use a small flat screwdriver and gently work it between the seal face and the rubber cup that fits around it. Go from side to side so that you don't put it in a bind and cause it to crack. Once it's worked loose, it can be pulled from the shaft and the rubber cup can be pulled loose from the cavity. The replacement seal will consist of 3 portions. The first being the stationary face, which is inserted in the rubber cup, the rotating portion, which will slide onto the shaft snugly, and the retaining spring, which follows the seal and is held in place by the impeller. Before inserting the new seal, be sure that the surfaces of the shaft and the cavity are all clean and free of foreign materials that may pinch or cut other seal components. Start the seal replacement by sliding the stationary face with the rubber cup installed onto the shaft and into the cavity. Be careful not to get it bound or in a cocked position. Using a seal pressing tool, such as a 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe, gently tap the seal into the cavity. Be careful not to crack any of the facing. Next, insert the rotating portion of the seal and press it down against the face of the stationary portion. Press gently so that it makes contact uniformly around the circumference of the seal. Place the retaining spring back against the seal and follow it by threading the impeller back onto the pump. Hold the shaft with a large, flat screwdriver. Be sure to tap the impeller so that it will not back off. Make sure the spring fits flat against the back of the impeller. The grinder can now be set back onto the volute and evenly tightened with the 4 bolts that hold the volute in place. Place the pump back on its side and reinstall the cutter for the grinder mechanism. The use of an adhesive is recommended on the threads and the bolt that lock the cutter. If the oil was removed from the seal cavity, you will now need to refill it with dielectric oil through the port on the side of the cavity.